Hi, everybody. As promised, I wanted to bring you here to the studio to talk about the usage of analog EQ. What I've got here is the 500 series. The 500 series stereo pair of the Maag EQ4 and the Rupert Neve 551. I think as we go through it, many of you will find it's quite impressive. In fact, I love it so much, I've got this guy, and then I also have a digital version. And so just to kind of review exactly what we had talked about, we'll go back to our share screen here. We have access to our mixer. In this case. And it gives us, of course, within our audio effects, linear EQ all the way throughout. And hopefully, as you guys all saw the video, you could see we could put the usage of color and open up certain things after we've made our cuts. I think you're going to find that that's a very professional way to roll. And for many of you, it's going to be the name of the game for many of you in the future, of course. It's kind of the name of the game for me. So in that sense, making our cuts first and then opening up our color. And so as you're working that way, I think that in the future too, as you get maybe a little bit bigger budget, or as you start building a studio, of course, you might find that doing the 500 series is potentially what you might want to do. Now, there's a couple of things that we have to look at though with that 500 series idea. And that is the simple fact that we do have to make sure that we've got a track count for it. And so one of the main things that we want to look at is that we have to have enough ins and outs. And so the ins and outs that I'm utilizing here in this room is the SPL Madison, which is 16 channels in and 16 channels out. Now remember, if we can't come out of the computer, we can't bring it out into this device. So the 500 series is really quite simple. So in this case, I've got a total of 6 modules that I could put inside here. So as you can see, I've got one of the spaces left open, just waiting for something cool, hopefully one of these days when I save up some money. And as you can see, the power just rolls right. And now looking at the back of this, then once you've locked in that module to the power supply, you can see it very professionally links everything in. Now, if you wanted to, I could do XLR, or you could do, in this particular case, DB25. DB25 is an 8-channel snake. And so in that case, if it's DB25 to DB25, it's 8-channel into another device, maybe like a patch bay or something like that. But the 8-channel snake is very simple. It just locks into the back of that. And then you can make it XLR, mic cables. You can make it 1/4 inch if you wanted to. Or you could have, in that case, DB25 to DB25 so that I could go straight into the patch bay and I could use it here. So remember, if I don't have the output, then I can't send that signal out. And so in that sense, then as I'm working here on my DAW, I can make all my cuts and I can do everything that you've been trained to do. But the main thing is that I can come out. And so in this case, you could see I can come out a total of 192 times if I needed to. But in the case of the device that we're working with here, I really am coming out 16 times. And so using the Maag, for example, using the 551 Neve, that's really just 4 channels. So I could come out, through the Maag for 2 or something like that. And then I could come out the Neve for 2 or something. But you basically make a hybrid console if you wanted to. And I think that for me, having a 500 series, is really wonderful because a true console is going to cost you about $100,000 to $200,000. Let's just face it. So not having to do that, I think, would be pretty cool, right? In my case, I pretty much made a hybrid console, and I've got, obviously through stereo pair, it's not having 32 channels or something like that, but I could have, if I'm patient, a hypothetical Meg console, or I could have a Neve console if I wanted, right? So as you can see here, then I'm simulating that cut just like we're doing here, and then I'm simulating the Neve console on every single track after this. And so maybe you can kind of get some ideas on simulating exactly what we've got here, or maybe potentially in the future some ideas of what we can do to push the bar. So let's just go back here then. What were you looking at? Well, the first thing first is this power supply. So the power supply in itself, I won't tell you exactly which one to buy. It's, you make your decision. But as you can see here, in this case, you can link it in. In that case, that's, similar to what I have here. It's a 6-channel. So 6 slots. So, you could basically have 3 stereo pair if you wanted to. And the back of that, of course, if you wanted, you could have it plugged in with the DB25 to anything to break out, or in the sense of, XLR or 1/4 inch. In this case, you could see that it's XLR as well as the DB25 on mine. Once you've got the power supply, then we want to look at the module that we had here. And the module that I picked, of course, because of a lot of different bands, artists, producers utilizing this, it's been a magic trick in the master bus world for many, many years. It's been a magic trick, as far as mastering engineers for decades. So the EQ4, it's wonderful to be able to have this 500 series, because normally it was a rack module, and that rack module would cost thousands of dollars. And in this case, it's about $850 each, which, is to me a little bit cheaper, actually a lot cheaper, of course, right? Let's look at this real quick. What I love about this is you can see here in all of the training that you just had as far as talking about EQ, you see here in terms of our sub-frequencies, we're looking at this as a peaking filter. You see there? 160 peak. Anything above 0 is going to be adding color. Anything below is going to be cutting. In this case, 2.5 kilohertz shelf, opening up some of the highs. And in the case of the air gain, look up here. So as it's opened here, 20 to 20,000 is our human hearing, but you see where I could flip this up to 40K. And that's something I love doing in this room. So for my synths and for vocals, for guitars, certain things that you want to stand out, being able to open up that 40K, I think you're going to find is truly amazing. Continuing on, looking at that Neve 551 module. This allows me to get to that Alan Parsons console. It allows me to be able to get to deadmau5's console. This is the same EQ that they have in the 5088. But in this sense, these are, about $1,000 each. So it's a lot cheaper, a couple grand in order to have a stereo pair. And then of course, if I'm patient, I can make that work, right? So as you can see here, then just kind of rolling through it, low frequencies, selectable at 35, 60 to 100. Isn't that very, very similar to what we just saw within our Logic project, right? Look at that. Selectable, right? Very similar. Mid parametric, selectable 200, 350, and 700, and then you can attenuate from that point. 1.5, 3K, and 6K. With continuous gain from -15 to +15. Now, the high frequencies, another wonderful aspect of this console or these modules, it is definitely a perception of human hearing in terms of, it goes below and above our human hearing in this particular case. And utilizing these modules, I think for many of you, you'll find that it really, really pushes. And as it says, 16K, opening that band up to me is just putting a breath of fresh air into the signal. And don't take my word for it. All students, as you guys know, you all have access to this gear. So if you've got a project or whatever you're happiest with when you get done with the class, I'm hoping that you'll send it to me, and then I'll run this through, and then you'll be able to hear this in real time. I think you will love it. So as you can see here in this case, nothing to it. Excuse me, I didn't mean to pass the high pass frequency. In this particular case, the high pass filter, in this case, very, very easy. You pop that guy in, and you can see here engages 80 hertz high pass filter. And being able to have access to something like this quickly, for a vocal or something like that, is just wonderful. A lot of people utilize this for the filter in itself, So quickly then, the last one we didn't talk about, and I was going to just kind of show you, is one that I've got here, the Bax EQ. And a lot of mastering engineers absolutely love this as well. But one of the things I love about this Bax is it allows me to, once I've done all that color and everything that we just talked about, this Bax allows me to be able to cut some of those lows out again, and to be able to cut some of those highs out. then I can set a shelf to attenuate anywhere that I want to, and then I can boost from that shelf that I've attenuated in the lows or the highs. Let me show you how that goes. It's really, really easy. So I've got it here on the bottom. Just get this guy so you can see a little better. You see that okay? So you've got on this side, I'm cutting 18. So I'm cutting some of those lows, but I'm well below our human hearing. Shelf at 84. So I'm basically boosting, some of the ultra lows, some of that low, that warmth. And then you can see here, I'm being pretty aggressive about it. These little dials, that's the stereo pair of each side of the lows only. And that's a shelf. The left side, in this particular case, left and right highs. And that shelf is set at 7.1. So 7.1, that's going to, certainly be not, obviously, sibilants and crazy highs and things like that. In this case, I'm cutting at 28. So as I'm using the backs, along with using the color of what we've seen here with the mag, and getting to some of that craziness, right? And getting to some of the color and the beauty of the Neve, then I can contain it with that backs. Utilizing all of that together, I think is this, a wonderful way to go. And maybe potentially for some of you, give you some ideas on something in the future on how you can push the bar on your system. So one more time to review, the only way that this works, the only way we can utilize this is we have to be able to send it out of the system. If we can't send it out of the system, then we obviously can't re-record it back in. So in this case, sending it out of the system, instead of coming out stereo out, we're going to be coming out whatever we've got our system set up to. And so in my particular case, I've got my Meg set up to 11 and 12, and my Neve is set up to 9 and 10. So as long as I've got that set, and then everything else, of course, has got its own corresponding channels. The main aspect, of course, of what we've got is that I have to have an I/O, or an in and out, that will allow me to be able to go in and out of the computer. And in this case, it's just simply 16 channels in and 16 channels out. But that's one of the biggest investments that I could make, so that I could not continue on, of course, making the rest of the investment on putting everything else in, like, the outboard gear and the compression and everything else. But with that, I hope that helps. I'm glad to have you guys here at the studio, and please keep emailing me. Let me know if you need anything. Obviously, most importantly, if you have any questions, let me know. I'll be seeing you guys shortly. You take care.